Friends, as you are gathering, my name is Jacqui, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm honored to hold space for this conversation, for this peace talk, with, I'm going to say, my new friend and colleague, Rafael Shimunov, who will speak words into our space and help us to hear his point of view. Why don't you use the chat to let us know where you're from? And because this is a webinar, we can't talk to you. But I hope I'll leave like 10 minutes at the end or so for questions for us. What I want you to know is I'm a Black, if you can't see me, 60-something-year-old universalist person who follows Rabbi Jesus in the way, whose heart is cracked wide open at the terrible, terrible violence in the land I also call holy. And just wanting to set tables for us to learn, to listen, to lean into peace, because we have conversations we haven't had a chance to have, or heard a thought that we haven't had a chance to hear. And we at Middle Church are just sharing with you some of the voices we're listening to, some of the voices that are instructing us or inspiring us in this moment. So there's no sort of catechism here or indoctrination here. It's just me and Rafael talking about what's happening from his point of view and to see if it's helpful to you. So we're going to let a few more people in, and then we're going to get started. Hi, Ashmael. Hi, my people. Mi gente are here. Just come on in. Take deep breaths as you're gathering. There's a lot happening. And this is a moment of just listening and learning. We're going to take your questions at the end. We are looking for inspiration, wisdom, education that helps us think about peace. Rafael, I'm so grateful that you said yes to coming to talk with me, a new sister in your world, to talk with us, to share with us your point of view. And the first thing I want to just ask you is if you would just tell us your story. Like, tell us why you're in this room and what you're bringing with you.
I'm in this room because I think my elders taught me to care about the world. From my dad, who, once he started opening a small business and someone robbed him, he let the person go and said, he's a young man. He doesn't know what he's doing. Just, he'll figure it out. Let him go. It's not that important. And he kept saying that, and my mom would make fun of him because every time he said young man, it was anyone from 18 to 55. And so like I got to watch that, and I got to watch my Jewish institutions and parents and elders teach me all the right things about what we call tikkun olam, repair the world, and and then sometimes when you teach that, like when I teach my daughter things, critical thinking, or my child things, they immediately will hold me accountable, and that's that. I don't know how many if you have kids, but one kid, yeah, same. And they will hold you accountable immediately once you give them that tool or highlight that tool for them. My parents, we, as a baby, we were refugees, highest refugees from Uzbekistan, Jewish minority there in a majority Muslim country, occupied by the Soviet Union. And we fled as refugees to New York. We had a choice between Cincinnati, Ohio, and Israel. And my dad just refused Cincinnati, Ohio, and he basically was told New York is full. And he was like, no such thing. New York cannot be full. No, no, no. And he just stubbornly forced them to allow us in New York instead of Ohio.
Wait, tell me how he did that.
He just refused. And
How
they were
did
just
he,
like, this man is not going to move until we let him go to New York. Yeah.
what year was that, Rafael?
1980. Yeah. We're a small minority of Jews called Bukharian Jews, which is only a couple of 100,000 people in the world. And we were among the first Bukharian refugees in the US.
Can you tell us a bit about what it was like to be a Baharian? Am I saying that right? Jew in
Yeah.
Uzbekistan, in a Muslim country. What was it like?
Oh, I've recently visited for the first time since we left. And I learned a lot. I closed a lot of open questions that I had all my life. But it's generally, it's both similar and different than the Jewish diaspora story all over the world. Similar in that we have our close, tight-knit community across another more dominant culture, where kind of based on the whims of who's in charge, we were either favored, neutral, or the enemy. So, so basically, that actually feeds into a lot of reason why people are so invested in like a militaristic Israel, like this fear of going back to, founded or not, this fear of going back to a non-sovereignty where your welfare depends on the whims of other people, of a majority. But I think a lot of people, Black Americans and others, have that same experience here in the United States, as we do. So, and then what makes us different is we were the Jews among the Jews, I think, actually maybe furthest apart from the rest of the diaspora for the longest amount of time.
Oh, mhm.
We were very much not even called Buharians. We're called Buharians because a European traveler likely went to a town called Bukhara in Uzbekistan, a beautiful town, and met one of us for the first time and called us Buharian. We were always called Yisrael
Israel,
as a people. Yeah,
Israel, the people.
Yisrael, yeah, as a people, um, which, is very interesting today. And in that community, it's very much, there was very much struggles too, but there was also camaraderie between us and Muslims under the boot of an authoritarian occupying power that criminalized religion. So there, like my favorite story is when a rabbi and an imam got together and acknowledged that, Jews can't build synagogues, so let's offer them our mosques for their um, events and bar mitzvahs and brises and things. And the mosques are actually protected because they were museums. You're not supposed to pray in them, but you could go visit the museum. So they allowed us to visit the museum when each of us to 13, and we had our bar mitzvah there. And there was, and then on the other end, Jews had created relationships with some of the law enforcement where they would turn the other way if we prepared our food kosher. And the imam and the rabbi got together, and the imam would grant all kosher food to be halal. And so there was this like collaboration and beauty. And one recent story that I heard was we have this. I love this story. It's very new. I don't think I've told it anywhere yet. It's like we have a traditional dress called a joma, which is like a kaftan, and it's a robe, and it's Uzbekistan is famous for something called ikat, which is a silk dyeing process that's borrowed from Indonesia and adapted in our own special way. And it's like the national treasure, this fabric, and it's been copied by like Ralph Lauren and put on high heels and all sorts of things. It's something my grandma wears, and it's put on these very provocative high heels now. And these jomas have like different colors and the natural colors blended into the silk. And what I learned was a true joma could not be made unless it went to each different community, because each different community held the secrets to dyeing different colors. So you would take the garment and you would take it to the Jews, and they would close the door and not let you see our traditional process, and they would do the blues and the greens, and then you would take it back to the Sunni Muslims and Uzbeks and other people, and they would do the reds and things and oranges and yellows, and that was just beautiful, and it wasn't just to be kumbaya. It was like a matter of necessity. We didn't know each other's secrets, and we wanted the best colors, and they worked. Yeah. So that's where I come from.
I love that. I wonder. I want to say this the way I experience it as an African American person in America from an African diaspora, raised in like Omaha, Nebraska, and Mississippi and Chicago, and like I think of myself, Rafael, as a border person, like not a
Mm.
borderline person, right, but a border
Mhm.
person, a person who learned early to survive by being, the only Black kid on the Air Force Base or the new kid on the block. Or did your experience growing up with this beautiful fabric moving around, did it give you an experience of being on the border that informs the way you think now?
It does. But it also, that border has changed, and that's also what motivates me. So we were like, Trump would attack immigrant families as like anchor families, where we would, if one family gets here, we sponsor a bunch more and tame migration and all these vilifying terms. But in effect, we did sponsor a lot of Buharians to come here, and some Uzbek Muslim people, and they would come to our house, and every 6 months in our home there was a new family living with us, and they would tell me these stories. That's how I heard these stories, and most of them. And I also heard difficult stories. And what happened was, unfortunately, um, like propaganda, nationalist Israeli propaganda, changed these stories, or made people feel like they should change these stories. And the same people who told me these beautiful stories of solidarity with each other are now saying we didn't flee Soviets. And when we say Soviets, a lot of people like to say socialists or this, or they weren't socialists. They were authoritarian white supremacists. And they used the visage of like communism and socialism and all these things to justify their project. And when in reality, it was white supremacy, and that we were allied together against that. They even had imported white Russians to Uzbekistan to hold all the managerial positions and positions of power. And then they would actively foment division between our different ethnic groups, which are many more than just Uzbek and Bukharian. It was Tatars, it's Koreans, it's Chinese, Uyghurs. Like, everyone lived in Uzbekistan, or it still does. And what we saw was what I saw as a kid were these beautiful stories. And then as an adult, watching these same people on Facebook retell these stories in a way where we didn't flee white supremacy, which is a word they would never use. They would say communist. That we didn't flee the Soviets, that we fled Muslims, and that we fled Muslims because they were primarily the force of anti-Semitism against us. And this is factually completely inaccurate. There were there were instances of that, just like here and elsewhere, and very sometimes violent instances. But that was not actually the case. And Zionist propaganda helped, right wing Zionist propaganda kind of helped people change those stories, and then it just made me very upset when people change. It makes me upset when someone puts their fingerprints too much on a beautiful photograph I love. So it really makes me upset when someone changes our memory and our history to serve a political purpose.
To serve a political purpose. Rafael, thank you for that those backstories. Gosh, I wish we had 6 hours. But let's just come to this present moment where you and I, looking at each other in this Zoom square.
Yeah.
With New York behind you in a picture, and oh my God, I live now down by Ground Zero, and so I have every day I go home, I'm like, remember how this was a thing?
Yeah.
You just, from where you sit in the world, tell us how you're feeling about what's happening.
Mm. Um, so many things. And I guess I would be like just processing in real time in front of you because they're not like
Yeah,
solidified at all.
please do that.
But I'm it's very conflicting. I see so much hope because in 2014, when another attack on Gaza occurred, I joined the movement against occupation and apartheid and for Palestinians because of that. And it was a Jewish group of young people praying in front of a Jewish institution, doing what we call the mourner's Kaddish, reading the names of the dead.
Can I say
Yeah,
Raphael is Jewish and he
yeah,
joined the resistance against occupation? Yeah.
yeah. And when, yeah, so now, like in that, I could tell stories about it, but I don't know if we have time. But like in that moment, we saw a surge, and a group started called If Not Now, which was American Jews who um, there's already a group, Jewish Voice for Peace, and they're very much orientated to be in full solidarity with Palestinians. And it's remarkable when Palestinians say jump, we jump under there. When they say how high, we say okay, we got you. And that's a very powerful thing to do in allyship. And then another powerful thing to do is not let everything be on the people who are being harmed and to fix ourselves. And if not now, looks inward and looks at why we believe these things or why we're raised to and how what it takes to unlearn it, and also serves as a support for Jewish people who lose their networks and their families and their friends when they do this. And now it's become a very, very huge movement since then, as maybe you saw videos in Grand Central or DC. We had blocked all the entrances to the White House. We took over the rotunda in Congress and we shut down Grand Central. Um, and we did all those things because we believe, as our elders teach, that our liberation is intertwined and uh, that this is a toxic thing for all of us and deadly for mostly for Palestinians, but toxic to us. And I'm witnessing that toxicity boil right now. And friendships are being tested, organizations are being tested, and it's just a very difficult time. And it's almost selfish sounding to talk about that when what we're trying to talk about is turning off all the bombs coming down on children in Gaza.
Raphael, turning off all the bombs coming down on the children in Gaza is my deepest conviction and Middle Church's deepest conviction that we don't believe violence ends violence. Only light can end darkness. And so just wanting you to know that we're with a call for peace.
I
And
saw a comment that says compassion also for those harmed on both sides. I think that's very important.
it is.
And one of the things we did when we do the mourner Scottish is we read everyone's name. We read Israeli names, even soldiers. We've read Palestinian names, even militants. We read everyone who died. And we stand by that. And that's one of the biggest things we're attacked for many years.
So let's talk about that for just a minute, because I am watching the world and praying and thinking and learning. I say I'm a student, and I can see, I would say you can possibly not be, hear me when I say, Jewish enough right now if you are not simply pro-Israel, right? Can we talk about the difficulty, to take us back to the word borders, the difficulty of being a both and person, Rafael, the difficulty of being a person who wants everyone to be free? Why is it so difficult? And tell me if you have any hope that we can do anything about it.
I'm learning every day too. And people have been recently educating me about other forces at play, all the different forces at play. We have so many interests at play. We have people in Gulf countries who love instability because the price of oil goes up. We have people, like dictators. We have Christian right-wing Zionists who want us to go to Israel and die for their end times prophecies. And they're very powerful. They actually number more than Jewish Zionists in the world, and they donate more than any Jewish Zionist. We have people who are scared in Israel of again being without a nation and at the whims of the majority who historically falls prey to anti-Semitism whenever anything gets difficult. We have Palestinians who are actually the Jews of the Arab world, who are not welcomed across the Middle East, and that we have the most in common with as Jews, along with maybe Kurds and other people, other minorities within the Arab world, who really weren't really welcomed by brothers and sisters as much as they should be. And we have them with keys to their homes that they can never return to, or they haven't been returning to because of segregation, apartheid, occupation. Gaza itself, the existence of Gaza itself is a war crime. All of those people who live in Gaza lived all across Israel.
And now are in a kind of ghetto, or some will say open air prison, but or reservation. I mean, trying to make parallels for people, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like sometimes the dialogue in Israel is kinder, maybe until recently with this newer right-wing government, but like historically, dialogue in Israel, debate about all this has been actually more open than in the United States. And it could be something about a diaspora's need to overcompensate and to be extra, extra. I have friends who are like Caribbean, and they're, the Jamaican diaspora. They're like extra Jamaican in New York because, they're not home. And we joke about that and we tease each other about that. And there's, in more serious ways, like, I feel like American Jews are very similar in that way, where the same thing, a right wing, like there's things that a right wing prime minister would have said, who actually said, and if an American says it, they're going to be called anti-Semitic. For example, prime ministers of Israel have said in the past, if I was Palestinian, I would be doing the same exact things that Palestinians are doing. And I would lose respect for them if they didn't. And if we ever said anything like that in the United States, forget about it. So there was a much more richer dialogue and a more celebration of intellectualism in Israel, actually, than there is in the United States for that reason. And now it's been a little bit different because it's like their MAGA just won control of the government, and we're seeing the repercussions of that. In fact, to put it bluntly, actually, even the right-wing government in Israel in the past, Ariel Sharon, removed those far-right settlers from Gaza forcefully. And now those people who were removed from Gaza, the Kahanists, they were designated as terrorists in the US and Canada, in Israel. They assassinated an Israeli prime minister. Those people are now in power over Israel.
Right. What's Kahanist mean? Say that.
So there was a leader, a spiritual leader called Meir Kahan, and he was a far-right figure who believes in a greater Israel, which takes parts of Jordan and Egypt and all sorts of things. And he's extremely homophobic, misogynist, racist, all the things, and very militant. And these people would send bombs to US presidents. They would bomb facilities in the US, post offices. They would bomb innocent families in kindergartens in Palestine. And they would assassinate like dovish hawks and peacemakers in Israel. And they were made illegal all across the world.
What is this Kahanas from Cohen? Priest from
Yes, he is a Kahan. Yeah, a Kahan is a derivative from Cohen, which is considered one of our priestly classes with Levi. Yes.
which I'm totally not literate on that. So I'm going to
Yeah. Yeah.
you say it makes me think about the way our far right Christianity functions sometimes in our nation, oftentimes in our nation, to decide holiness is bigotry or holiness is.
Right.
We are having what I hope is our first talk, you and I. But I know that things are popping and hopping, right?
Yeah.
I would love for you to just use these moments, these last minutes, to tell us what you want people to dream of with you, think of with you, hope for with you. Call us in a bit, please.
Hope. So I do have hope, but I also want a call to action. I always want to follow. So
Yeah.
I think hope is, yes, hope. There is hope. There are people who, when we do these actions, are for the first time seeing anything like this.
Yes.
And I think as activists or people who are anti-war, as on this call, and you and others, we sometimes feel like we're repeating ourselves a lot, and that everyone kind of got it already. They heard it, but every time we say something, there's a whole new group hearing it.
Yes.
So the hope is that the people are hearing us as long as we keep repeating it. And also, I guess, like and I'm seeing a groundswell of support, and the world is with the hostages. The world is with Palestinians. It's the governments that are not, and it's certain players who are manipulating people who are not. And if we just open up our hearts more than we are used to, it's very easy to understand how easy actually that is. And the call to action really is in this country, in the United States, all we have is this coalition. They have the money, they have the power, they have the weapons, they have the forces of all sorts, they have the economics. We have the people. But we only have the majority of the people when we're together. In fact, the year that Trump got elected, 51% of the population was people of color, voting population, people of color and progressives together. 51%. And that was the first day that America gets to try out being a democracy, because we were never truly a majority yet to affect any change other than what white middle class or upper rich Americans wanted. So now we're the first. I think we were born as a democracy then, maybe. And if we allow them, and they know this better than we do, to divide us and this coalition. So what I'm asking for is this radical solidarity, which does not mean that we keep people in our spaces that hurt other people, right, but that we don't throw them out. And that when we talk about canceling, we also talk about restoration.
Oh, I love that.
And because people don't know that. They think, oh, I'm going to be canceled. Oh, no, you can also be restored. And the idea that that's actually really important. I don't want to lose anyone in this coalition because we will all suffer for it.
So standing together for peace, that's what this coalition's about. Yeah. If we cancel someone, give them a chance to restore us. And our ultimate aim is
a world that we're proud of, that we could imagine all this energy going towards, what you dream about, gardens and painting and Uh,
Dancing.
yes, this is what we're made for, and all of this is a distraction. And we need to keep that in mind. Like that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for liberation of every part of our soul.
Every part of our soul. Rafael, tell people, and Ben will type it in the chat because he's my best buddy over there. Tell us how people can best follow the organizations that you are leading. Jay Fredge, and just tell us some stuff that we can follow.
Um, so yeah, if you're in New York, there is a group, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, JFREJ, and they typically focus on New York things, cultural things, and also electoral stuff in New York State. And of course, all of these global issues are sometimes very local. So they will, yes, thank you for sharing the link. Then there is, I think, if you are in particularly, and JFREJ is a part of a multiracial, multi-faith coalition that we never show up alone. We never say the Jews want this. We say the Jews and the Christians and the Catholic and the Muslims and the atheist, everyone wants this. Let's get together and do this.
The atheists.
That's what, yeah. Yes, everybody. And then there's If Not Now, which is particularly for younger Jews who want to be the generation who ends US support for the occupation. And then there's Jewish Voice for Peace, who is a little bit more centered around, like I spoke earlier, the solidarity piece with Palestinians. And then there's all sorts of Israeli and other things. There's the Center for Nonviolence and all of these. There's Breaking the Silence, which is veterans, Israeli veterans who kind of come and take risk to tell the truth about their service and what they either refuse or regret or what they would want to happen. But yeah, there's just so many out there. And then in terms of the Palestinian side, there's Adala Justice Project, and also Empower Change, if you know Linda Sarsour.
Linda's our sister, yeah.
The letter M, and then Power Change.
Power Change, yeah.
Yeah, and those are two really, really good organizations to look from on the Palestinian and Muslim side.
And friends, if you're listening to this in my network, you might not know that I'm the most universalist Christian you ever met. So I'm the universalist chick who believes there's more than one path to God. But at middlechurch.org, if you find this in Christian spaces, we're going to keep lifting up voices like Raphael's and Linda's and Josh's and all the people who are calling for peace and like a world in which Raphael's children and my grandchildren and your children can flourish and have peace. So Raphael, this is the first talk.
All right, I'm down.
You're down?
Yeah, I'm down.
Let's have some coffee in New York where we both live.
All right, we got it. We got this.
Come to middlechurch.org, at Rev Jacqui Lewis. Raphael, say your handle.
At Rafael Shimunov on Twitter and on Instagram at Rafternoon.
And we'll put that in the links. Raphael, I said at the top, can we do one of those universalist, let's just call it calling in the love, okay? When I pray, my eyes are open and I look at your face and I see eyes wide with both worry and hope and determination. I see our city in your backdrop picture. I feel like I just want to say, can all the love that is in your heart, mine, and all who are listening, whenever they see this, can that love know that it is strength, that it is not wimpy, that it is powerful and is not passive, that love demands justice, which means it takes risks and sometimes makes people mad, but on the way to building the world we want together. May we love each other fully. I'm so glad you came today to speak with us. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a joy.
It was a joy. I can't wait to talk more. Peace, everybody. Peace, peace, peace. Bye.